I'm nervous though.
You should be nervous.
It's almost like this is like the canary in the coal mine. Is someone working on legislation?
Of course they are.
So that if you graduate from medical school and you go through residency, you don't finish working for 10 or 15 years, that you'll end up paying some type of penalty.
Listen, this is what people, I think, need to understand. You are at the whim of whatever administration leader comes about. We can't fool ourselves into thinking that you will protest, boycott, get enough names on a piece of paper to change people's minds who essentially want to see something done. What you have to be able to demonstrate to that person is the risk-benefit ratio, because that's how these people work. If you do this, it will be worse for you because, and usually that because has a $sign in front of it.
Folks, your exciting new medical career, it's just been hit with a serious illness or injury that stops you from earning a paycheck just when you need it most. Check out what Jamie Fleischner of Set for Life Insurance said back on episode 176 about having disability insurance early in your career.
The real reason to get it early on is really twofold. One is to protect your insurability. So if you are healthy and you can obtain the coverage, you also pre-approve yourself to be able to buy more in the future. So down the road, as your income does increase, you don't have to answer additional medical questions. All you have to do is show that your income is increased and you can buy more benefits at that time. No medical questions asked.
Protect your income, secure your future. Check out setforlifeinsurance.com.
What's up, everybody?
Late night live from Docs Outside the Box. Because I wanted to talk about this. Renee wanted to talk about this. So there's a Congressman Greg Murphy. He put out a tweet yesterday, the 28th. And he says the number one reason for MD shortage is med schools admitting students who aren't going to practice. Only 60% of med students today plan on practicing clinical medicine. Med schools need to focus on admitting students who want to take care of patients, not just get their MD. How the hell you gonna do that? But anyway, right?
So he got 60% plan on practicing.
Yeah, so 40. So he says that 40%. Basically, saying 40% don't plan on practicing, and that's the number one reason why there's a shortage.
At what point are they not planning on practicing? Are they not planning on practicing when they're pre-med? Are they not planning on practicing once they get into med school? Like, are medical schools asking pre-med students, do you plan to practice? And 40% are like, no. And they're admitting them anyway. Where is he getting this statistic?
So,
Dr. Murphy, tell us where you're getting your statistic from. I'd love to hear it.
The thing that's really interesting is he doubled down on it and said it should be mandated that unless disabled, each medical school graduate should have to practice medicine full time for 15 years minimum to refund the federal government for the cost of tuition.
You mean pay their student loans back? I don't get it.
I think that's the one that got people most like, yeah. And
somebody got a free ride to school because maybe mommy and daddy paid. I don't know. Maybe that's the only reason that I can explain. Like, that's the only way I can explain that that he doesn't understand how federal funds might work.
You sure he doesn't understand?
But you'd be surprised.
On the record, I looked him up. He was at, I think it was medical school. I think Brody School, whatever it is.
East Carolina.
He's a urologist up until like 2017. And I think he started doing like some nonprofit work or for-profit work. And then obviously now he's a congressman. But yo, some of this stuff has got me like.
He's part of the shortage problem. He's not he should get to work.
There you go.
What you doing in Congress, Dr. Murphy? Get to work.
Unless he's trying to say that he's already done his 15 years.
I don't care because listen, so 15 years is an arbitrary number, right? What if we actually need all doctors to continue working for 25 years? I'm proposing 25 years, Dr. Murphy. What you got on that? I think you should go back, leave Congress, and go back to work. We need a lot of urologists. We got urologist shortage.
So this obviously is problematic.
Troll.
I don't know where he's getting his statistics from. I don't know where he's getting his statistics from. Because if you check Medscape, these numbers don't correlate with Medscape. They're physician surveys. Not satisfaction surveys or med school, what you plan on doing afterwards type surveys. So That's really interesting.
Right.
The second part, for me, that's the one where I'm just like, okay, this is either he's just saying this just to piss people off. There's no way he can believe that.
Well, he's not saying it to piss people off, I don't think. I think he has his own agenda, right? Like, listen.
So I do think
it's been 9 days.
Technically, he's not part of the, what do you call it? He's not.
I'm just saying it don't gotta be part of the cabinet. It just has to be administration driven. It has been 9 days. 9 days, guys.
Of what?
Since inauguration. It's been 9 days since inauguration. Since this administration has taken 9 days. So, it's been the longest year of my life.
I would say this. I think someone who is as educated as he is, someone who's a urologist, I just have a hard time believing that he truly believes this.
Just because he went to school doesn't mean he's educated.
I don't think he knows. Like, how can you?
Just because you went to school don't mean you're educated.
But if you went to medical school in the United States, what thought process would you ever, like, what part of going to medical school, applying to medical school, paying your loans, or even someone paying your school tuition, would you think that the federal government is paying your
Just
tuition?
Because you went to medical school doesn't mean that you're actually educated.
But this is what I'm saying.
It means that you were exposed to education. It doesn't mean that you were actually educated. Okay? Because in order to be educated, then you have to say things that really warrant some merit of education behind it. I just wonder where he gets that.
I think he's being punitive on purpose.
Of course he is.
Yeah, I think he's like, well, listen, if you don't practice for 15 years, then you have to, the penalty will be you have to pay back all these years in tuition. Like, I think he's saying that on purpose because there's no way that.
But how many people are getting a free ride on the federal government to medical school? Like, let's really talk about that.
Is it a lot or a little? I don't know.
The federal government, like outside of military folks, I don't think there are that many more people. Maybe National Health Service Corps, which those people already have a mechanism by which they pay back that
you can't just jump ship. They make it real expensive for you to jump ship.
Because then you have to pay 3 times the amount.
The second thing that I was thinking was, is he talking about residency? But
that's not tuition.
But then he specifically said tuition. So I'm like, well, what the hell is he talking about? And that's when I was like, he's just being punitive on purpose, right? That's part of this administration. Like, we're going to be as punitive as possible. We're going to say things. We're going to force you. You're going to either get down. You're either going to go along or you're going to get down, right? And I think that's because I can't see how this could be.
So it's disinformation on purpose.
Yeah, I agree.
Right? Because if you confuse people,
I agree.
If you say things that aren't true, right? Like, here's the thing. If you say things that aren't true, even if you come back and retract it, it's too late. The cat's out of the bag. So many people are going to be like, yeah, not realizing potentially that what he said doesn't actually make sense. But it doesn't matter because what he needs is to rile people up so that the next thing that he says becomes the thing that he actually wants people to do. Right? Like, so, this is disinformation on purpose, because you can't tell me a physician, a doctor is that stupid that he would actually think that what he said made any sense about, you have to repay the government for your tuition. That's called repaying your student loans. I don't get it. I'm like, who's getting a free ride on the government?
Actually, the government's getting a free ride on you.
Essentially.
The government gets a free ride on you.
Exactly.
You put down all the sweat equity. All they do is just guarantee the student loan.
And with interest.
And then you pay back that student loan in full.
With interest.
So the federal government makes mad money off of this.
Exactly.
It's money for them.
Right.
Like I said, the only thing that I can think of is that, when it comes down to residency training, the whole Medicare system pays like half. And then the med school pays the other half for your education as a resident. But the way how you explained it, explain how residency works, like in terms of, because you work.
Yeah. So, right. It is illegal in the United States to be employed by somebody and not get paid for the work that you actually are doing. Mm-hmm. Residents are considered employees. They're not considered students. They're not getting money just for education, right? Otherwise, what would be the point of resident unions, which we know that there are several resident unions around the country. So they are employees. They're actually working when they are seeing patients. They generate dollars by seeing patients. So they are actually employees. So you can't say that they would even pay the Medicaid or Medicare dollars that pay for residency salaries. You can't even say that they would pay those back because it's like, well, but then I worked. So therefore you have to pay me.
I'm nervous though. I'm real nervous.
You should be nervous.
Because folks like this, when they start to put out, it's almost like this is like the canary in the coal mine. Like, is someone working on legislation?
Of course they are.
So that like this, something like this happens, I don't know, in the next 4 years or something.
Of course they are.
Hell, if you graduate from medical school, and I bet you it'll be like, if you graduate from medical school and you go through residency, if you go through residency and you don't finish, working for 10 or 15 years, that you'll end up paying some type of penalty or something like that.
I mean, listen, this is what people, I think, need to understand. Like, you are at the whim of whatever administration, whatever leader comes about, right? And so the notion of, we just gotta, it's like, listen, you can fight, you can do all the things you want. But at the end of the day, if an administration wants to see something, there is nothing that you are going to do in order to change a person's mind. Like if their value may not be the same values that you have. And so we can't fool ourselves into thinking that you will, protest or boycott, or I don't know what else people are planning to do. Get enough names on a piece of paper for a petition or whatever to change people's minds who essentially want to see something done. Very specifically, what you have to be able to demonstrate to that person is the risk benefit ratio, because that's how these people work. Yeah. You have to show them that, listen, if you do this, it will be worse for you because, and usually that because has a $sign in front of it.
No matter where you are in your career, you've seen patients your age or younger get seriously injured, have a long-term illness, or even have a mental health issue that affects their ability to work. Now, what if that was you? No, for real, what if that was you? Without disability insurance, how are you going to replace your paycheck? In episode 176, Jamie Fleischner of Set for Life Insurance explains why the best time to buy disability insurance is during your residency.
Most physicians acquire their disability policies during residency, and there's several reasons. First of all, when you're younger, you're able to obtain the insurance because they ask you a whole host of medical history. And so you usually don't get healthier over time. Usually you get less healthy over time. So when you're healthy, it's easier to acquire the coverage. Number two, it's also less expensive because it's based on your age and your health. You're not getting younger or healthier over time. So you're at the ideal time. The earlier you get it and the younger you are, the less expensive it's going to be.
So whether you're a resident or you're an attending, it's never too late to protect your income. Renee and I, we use Set for Life Insurance to find a disability policy that fit our needs and budget. So what are you waiting for? Check out setforlifeinsurance.com. Once again, that's setforlifeinsurance.com.
So if you look at most surveys, realistically, the two major issues that cause people to leave medicine is burnout, right? So you're either not happy with your job, you're tired, you're not getting a chance to see your family, you have a mental breakdown, or the other category is usually money, right? Like for whatever reason, money is an issue and you're like, I can either make money better doing something else, or I can spend more time with my money doing something that's less stressful. But those are usually the two main issues, which is the person is burnt out or money is a major issue. And usually it's student loan related and so forth. So
well, at least student loan as a contributor.
Those are usually the systemic issue. Well, part of the systemic issues what will cause someone to say, you know what? Either while in medical school, they're like, yo, I'm out. because I see my attendings or I see residents, or I just see greener pastures doing something else.
Mm-hmm.
Or you're in residency or you're a young attending and you're like, yeah, this has an expiration date before 15 years.
Right.
Is that you kind of just see the writing on the wall that, listen, like for the next 30 years, I just definitely don't want to be doing this.
Right.
That's where the focus should be on, is like, yo, why is the whole practice of healthcare, why is it very stressful at the people who make the most decisions all the time?
Right.
Right. So I always look at it like, you know, as a trauma surgeon, you know, I'm like leading a team, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I have a team of other docs. I have a team of, nurses. There's a team of, you know, allied health professionals. But I'm the one who has to make all the decisions. And I'm the one who's responsible for documenting. I'm the one who's responsible for billing. I'm the one who's responsible for a lot of the menial things that occur in a patient's care. But I have to make the most critical decisions.
Right.
That's fucking stressful.
Of course it's stressful.
Fucking stressful. Like if I'm, you know, 1 minute I'm doing a peer-to-peer and then the next minute I'm cracking someone's chest, right? And that peer-to-peer is based off of someone being able to leave a hospital and go to rehab. And then administration is coming down on me because you're not doing the peer-to-peer. But then the next minute I got to crack someone's chest.
Right.
And then talk to families. It's just like it's just a lot of different things that you got to do.
Yeah. So
Disinformation.
Dr. Cooper says disinformation, distraction for sure. Exactly. And Foothill, we waved. And is it Chamarita? 910, we waved. But yeah.
So do you see yourself practicing past 15 years?
I don't know. I mean,
right now you're at year 12 though.
Yeah. I mean,
like
12.
4 years.
I mean, I don't know, but what I do know is that if I'm paying, you know,
how about this? Actually, you work with students. You've worked with some who are residents. Have you heard any residents, or do you know of a bunch of residents who are saying, you know,
no,
15 years or less?
No. Actually, I would argue that at least most people that I encounter tend to look at medicine the traditional way, in that they will get out of residency and they will practice in very traditional ways.
There's no expiration date. They're just like, I'm just going to practice. And then
they're just going to practice. Most students, most residents that I encounter are not necessarily talking about, you know, well, I'm going to leave medicine after such and such a time, that I have an expiration date or whatever. So I'm not quite sure who he's encountering, especially he's a congressman. So I'm like, how many pre-meds and residents are you actually encountering to say that you are even, you know, that this statistic even exists? I would just like to know where he got the statistics.
Do you think this would have caused as much outrage if it's just that first tweet? I don't know.
Of course.
You know?
I think so. I mean, 60%, listen, 60% is, right? That's of
people who are going to practice.
Of people who are going to practice, right? Who are going to practice. 60% is a small percentage when you think about how many people are getting into medical school. And, you know, to say that 40% of them are not going to practice is just kind of like, are you serious?
Where's that number coming from?
I just want to know.
I wish he shared his sources on that one, because then we'd be able to say.
Well, typically, right, as physicians, as doctors, we know.
Is that a survey?
No, we know. I will tell you, any doctor worth their weight in salt, gold, and stethoscopes knows that whenever they pull a statistic out of their head.
Where'd you get that from?
I made that up.
Okay.
When they pull a statistic out of their head, what do? We cite it. We cite where we got the statistic. Otherwise, it doesn't count. So Congressman Murphy, it doesn't count until you tell us where you got that statistic from. It doesn't count. What you said doesn't make any sense until you can tell us. Give us a study. Give us some sort of something. Go to PubMed. Go to Medscape. Go anywhere. Go to Ebony Magazine. Figure it out. Where did you get that statistic?
Is Ebony still in circulation?
Yes, it is. But tell us where you got that statistic.
Is Ebony still, write it down. Is Ebony still in publication?
So Dr. Cooper says, I agree. We give up our youth to study and become doctors, while many residents want better work-life balance folks aren't talking about not practicing medicine. And that's the whole point. That's exactly on point. As much as we talk about, well, we want work-life balance, there is the literal work-life balance. People still want to work.
I think
want that balance with their lives. I'm not saying we're not working.
I think for my perspective is, because I think, well, we see the majority of people who go to medical school don't need student loans, right?
No.
Is that what they say?
I don't know.
Because the majority of people who go to medical school come from an affluent background.
Right.
And I don't know if that means that they take student loans. I don't know.
Oh no, we did that.
Right.
We did that, what's the name? When we did the NRMP.
Right.
But yeah, there was some study, I can't remember, that talked about the number of students needing, I think, student loans versus those who didn't. And it was broken down by race.
Are there any doctors who are like on the left at all?
What do you mean? In Congress?
Yeah, in Congress.
I don't know.
That'd be interesting to know. It just seems like most doctors who are in office are on the right.
Dr. Cooper said, he ain't got no studies. I know he ain't got no studies.
Yeah, because he would just cite that.
Right. He would cite it. He would absolutely cite it.
This is crazy. But I'll just say this. Don't believe the hype. I'm very suspicious of this. And I'm very suspicious about the rationale behind putting in the second part. Cause I'm like, are they trying to say basically if you don't practice past 15 years, is a law coming? Is there some type of resolution coming?
But how?
I don't know. I don't know.
How?
I don't know.
Are they going to call the loan?
No, what I'm saying
is that what he's saying? That they're going to call the loan?
Either call the loan or they could do something with residency. If you go through residency.
But you're working. They would literally have to change the labor laws.
Yeah.
Because at that point, if you change the labor laws in residency, you open up a can of worms.
But then this is what I'm saying. Like, is they pulling this out their ass just to like confuse people?
Oh, well, I mean, of course, but it's always to confuse people.
But yeah, I feel like there is some sense that there's this doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense to me. But
I mean,
they got a lot of
other thing that I could think of is that they would call the loan, right? To basically say, okay, now we're going to call the loan. But here's my question. That means that
you don't change any labor laws for residency. I'm about to start. He says, don't change any labor laws for residency. I'm about to start Gen Surge residency. And you won't regret it. Gen Surge is the best decision that you could ever make. I'm telling you right now.
Okay, here's a poster child for Gen Surge residency. Yeah, unless he's...
So it's... Oh, okay, it's me. Didn't mean to interrupt y'all. You're all good. It's all good, man.
So that means that... calling the loan would... If those of... I'm saying calling the loan, assuming everybody knows what that means. But calling the loan basically means that at some point in time, somebody...
Sally Mae says, we want our money now.
All the money now.
Not in 30 years or 20 years. We want the money now.
We wouldn't want all the money now. But here's the question. So are we saying that essentially that doctors would have to report how they are working?
You already have to do that.
To the government.
You already have to do that.
How?
When you do your, for example, in Pennsylvania, when you get your student or when you do your license, you have to do a survey. You don't remember that?
No, I understand.
And in that survey,
what I'm saying
let me finish. In that survey, it does ask you, how many years do you plan on practicing? How do you practice now? Are you happy with how you're practicing? Things like that. So that precedent is already there.
I get that. But that's if you're licensed.
Right.
And that's if you continue to be licensed. You don't have to be licensed. You don't. I bet you Governor, what's his name?
What do you mean you don't have to be licensed?
You don't have to be licensed as a physician. You can decide you're just not going to license anywhere. I'm not going to renew my license.
Well, if you don't renew
is Congressman Murphy licensed right now?
If you don't renew your license, then
you could look that up. Is he licensed anywhere?
If you don't renew your license, then
so then who are you reporting that to?
I don't know.
But that's what I'm asking, right? Because if you're not working, that would mean you would have to report that you are not working as a physician. You are not practicing clinically.
Or something goes out that says, prove to us that you are working.
Right. Basically, you would have to report that you're not.
Something goes out. and they can find out easily, right? They can do this based off of MPI information. They can do this based off of license information. They can double check all that stuff.
I understand, but now, so we're saying that we're going to put government funds.
Yes, they will do it.
Go and look to see if the doctor is working.
Yes.
So that's what I want to know. It's like, so you're going to take money to go figure out who's working and how they're working.
So I would just say that based off of how things have been going over the past 9 days with immigration, yeah. So they normally have flights that are chartered that are like $8,000, and now they're using like these military planes that are like $200,000 just to do the same thing that they're doing charter. Like, they ain't playing. So whatever amount of money they're going to use just to make a big deal, I can't see them sparing an expense to do that. So, girl, what words did she take right out of your mouth?
Huh? I took the word.
Emily.
There's a lag.
Dr. Emily's always on your side anyway.
Of course she is. Mm-hmm. That's my girl.
Yeah.
But, no, I mean, so that essentially means that essentially doctors would be policed as if we were military workers, right? Because a military worker has to report where they are, what they're doing, right? Potentially, if they're going to be on active duty.
Clocking doctors. So right. I don't know if you guys have listened to my previous episodes, but I've said it already that doctors are blue collar workers. I think that the notion that we were white collar workers, that doesn't exist anymore. White collar workers in healthcare are people in the C-suite, right? So your CEOs, your COOs, your CFOs.
The people with the BAs in Spanish.
Those type of people are the white collar workers.
They got a BA in
doctors
Spanish.
And other people who provide, clinical care.
Como se dice?
Blue collar workers. And as a result, you're starting to see more doctors strike. And what do blue collar workers do? They strike. And that's no play on what we do. I love what I do as a surgeon, but I think we have to come to grips with this is what we are. We're blue collar workers, and blue collar workers, what they do is they strike. Plain and simple. So
right.
I'm not always on Nay's side, usually. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we know how far back that goes.
Hey.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Dr. Cooper, you've been practicing now? She's been practicing the same amount of years as me, me and you and stuff. So
about the same.
Have you ever thought about like when you started residency or when you finished residency, did you ever think about having an expiration date, like maybe like 15 years, 20 years, or, retiring at, in your 50s or something like that? I'm very interested because I just think that more and more people are thinking about that. But I don't know if that's
I don't know if
majority, like 40% saying like, yo, because that's crazy then, right? That's like going to like buying something off of Amazon and it's saying, yo, this is returned a lot, right?
Right.
Like, that's like saying, I just want to go to med school just to go to med school. Who wants to do that?
Just so that I can just get because what he says is they just want to get their MDs. And it's like for what reason? Because that is a very expensive endeavor not to have a means by which you're going to make that back. And we know that at least most,
Emily Cooper says 15 years. 15 years.
I think we know that the surest way to make that money back is to work clinically, because anything else is a roll of the dice.
So Dr. Cooper says, I figured I would practice at least until I retired or moved into the C-suite. Then she become a white collar worker.
Then we be complaining about her.
Yeah. You be telling us what to do.
ML.
You be telling us what to do.
ML. Absolutely. Absolutely.
I just think that, things change. It's not like how it was when, this is not the 70s. This is not the 80s.
Yeah.
Not the 90s. A couple of things. One, corporatization of healthcare. All it does for the most part, it squeezes the practitioner like crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Do more with less. And then also on the other hand, now with the internet, you just got a lot more things that you can do with your MD or DO.
Yes.
Right. So people want experts on TV. People want experts on YouTube, podcasts. Pharmaceutical companies want the expertise of what you can do. So there's just the pasture, it's not the pasture, but like the grass is green on a lot of different aspects of healthcare. So people realize that, look, I just don't want to just practice clinically.
Yeah.
And it's like you're trying to fit like a square peg, in a round hole and stuff. It just doesn't work for everybody. But I think part of it, the big issue, and the physician shortage really doesn't have anything to do with physician satisfaction. No. I think most people would say the physician shortage is, first of all, med schools don't admit as many people as they should be.
Exactly.
And I'll just say this, hot take. I think it should be harder to get out of medical school than it is to get into medical school.
Right.
Right. So what I mean by that is, you don't necessarily have to be so hard to get into medical school. It should be hard to get into medical school, but I think they should increase the amount of people that they're letting in. Where it becomes super difficult, or where it should be really difficult, is for you to get out of medical school, because you have to show all these different things, these different, rigors to get out. But, I think that if you have these situations where, one, it's very hard to get in, you have these medical school classes that are putting out small amounts of people. Then you have residencies that there's not many residencies out there outside of primary care.
Outside.
You had an issue. Right. Like, for example, pediatric surgery. For decades, the numbers have just increased just a smidgen,
right.
And it doesn't keep up with how we are in society.
Considering he's in Congress, I mean, one of the things that he doesn't necessarily tweet about, at least that I haven't seen, is that there isn't quite, the number of residency spots as there should be, in comparison to the number of medical schools that are opening up and producing more and more medical graduates.
That's the bottleneck.
That's the bottleneck.
You have a lot more medical schools that are opening up.
Exactly. So therefore, these people cannot be trained.
The residency spots have stayed the same.
Exactly. These people cannot be trained. You have all these medical schools either increasing their class sizes, the ones that, medical schools that have already existed for, 50, 100 years, are increasing their sizes of classes. Or you have all of these medical schools that have essentially been greenlit, by all the powers that be, including the federal government, who gives who gives loans to these students. And essentially the medical schools are ensuring that there are plenty of graduates, but the residency programs are not ensuring that there are plenty of trainees. And that's a Congress problem.
I can even get down with like him saying that, we're going to try to like minimize, we're going to try to make sure that med schools can't increase their tuition, crazily every year, year in. Like if he said something like that, I'd be like, all right, but
good luck with that.
That makes no sense to me. Anyway.
Good luck with that, because
but we should wrap this up though. We need to wrap this up, yo. Guys, we're going to be talking about this on the episode of Docs Outside the Box. You can find us on YouTube at Docs Outside the Box Podcast. We're also on all DSPs, any place where you listen to your favorite music and album, any place where you listen to your favorite podcast, just type in Docs Outside the Box. That's where you'll find us. And someone says perhaps their agenda to utilize APPs beyond their scope because they're cheaper. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah. 100%.
But here's where I think that backfires, right? So I think, yes, APPs and nurse practitioners end up being cheaper than a physician, right? APPs don't follow a Hippocratic oath, right?
I mean, does the oath really matter at this point? And many doctors out there?
I'm not saying, I'm not talking about degradation or anything like that. But if you're worried about doctors striking, APPs and nurse practitioners that for the most part have no problem being employed, the likelihood of them striking,
very high.
Is extremely high. Right?
It's extremely high because think about it.
Their ability to walk away is a lot easier than a physician's ability.
Yeah, think about it, right?
That's the part that I'm like, y'all don't think about that.
A lot of the APPs, right? A lot of the APPs used to be RNs. What do we know about RNs? RNs being yes, because nurse practitioners.
At least APPs used to be. You said a lot of AP. Oh, so
adverse, right? Advanced.
You talk about APPs and CRNPs.
When he says or he or she says APPs, we're talking about advanced practice partners or basically advanced people.
So you're talking about PAs and nurse
PAs, nurse practitioners, CRNAs, right?
They used to be nurses.
Many of them used to be nurses, right? Especially the CRNAs and the MPs. They used to be nurses, right? And what we know about nurses is they be striking. They have unions. Nurses be striking all the time. Nurses will not hesitate to strike. They'll be like, I don't care who going into the Pyxis is not going to be me today. Okay. I don't know who going to be calling the doctor and telling them about this patient coding is not going to be me today. Okay. So nurses are very used to striking. So when they become NPs or CRNAs, listen, that feeling or that, tendency might not go away. It might not go away.
Yeah.
Even though technically they may not, well, actually, I don't even know if they're not considered, people who can unionize.
Who?
CRNAs and nurse practitioners
Why not?
specifically. I said, I don't know. Because there's like some fine line between management and not management and blah, blah, blah. Right? Yeah. Advanced practice providers. That's what it is. That word providers always throws me off.
I think it's easier. I think it'd be easier for
you know why?
APPs to unionize than doctors.
Oh, of course.
I think that it'd be the level.
Of course, but I wonder how many APP
although the barriers
there are.
The barriers to unionize for doctors has been lowering.
Yeah. Considerably.
Year by year. So,
yeah.
Hey guys, check us out on Docs Outside the Box podcast. You can check us out on YouTube. And we're also here. Yeah, I know.
You know why?
Yeah.
I don't really be using that word providers like that. So.
So on the podcast, we get an opportunity to talk about this stuff more, flush it out. We ask more questions. It's a lot easier for us to have these discussions on the podcast. So if you want to know more about us and our thoughts on things specific like this, check out our podcast.
Docs Outside the Box.
I appreciate everybody jumping in on us. We might do this again very soon, actually. So stay tuned. All right. Peace, y'all.
Peace.
All right. And I'm new to this. So should I hit X right now?
You go hit the X button.
Hit X. Bye.
Bye.